The Grenlec Debates. Power, bright ideas.
These are the 2024 Grenlec Debates. I am your host and former Grenlec debater, Ambrosia Charles. Welcome. We're in the second round of competition, the round of 16. The theme for this round is energy policy and economics. The areas of focus are energy policies, economic impact and subsidies, and taxes. Please note that although the students are given the topics and themes to research prior to the match, these debates are impromptu. The students develop their arguments today. They've selected their motions. They have been given 30 minutes to prepare their presentations without assistance from their teachers, and they're ready to debate. Let's get to it. This match is between McDonald College and J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School. The motion is, be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. For the proposition, J.W. Fletcher Catholic Secondary School. For the opposition, McDonald College.
Ladies and gentlemen, honorable judges and respected opponents, good morning. My team and I will use 3 strong points to support our argument and stand firm in affirmation of the motion, be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. As first speaker, my responsibility is to define key terms and expound on our first point. My second speaker will expound on points 2 and 3. Our cross-examiner and myself will ask and answer questions respectively. Our rebuttal speaker's task is to clear up any misconceptions that you, the audience, might have or that the opposition might have placed in your minds. Webster's Dictionary defines energy as the resources used to produce usable power. Generate is defined to cause or to come into being. Imported is something brought into the country. Sources is someone or something that provides what is needed. Esteemed judges, we strongly believe that the Caribbean can generate its own energy because we can use other energy sources such as solar and wind energy, which is already highly developed, and keep in mind, since ancient days, we have been using solar energy. For example, the use of magnifying glass to produce fire to generate electricity through solar energy. So, if we have been using solar energy since ancient times, why can't we use it now? Energy independence cuts the need for costly fossil fuel imports, which accounts for a large portion of Grenada's foreign exchange spending. The imported energy sources are majority fossil fuels, which are very harmful for our environment. If the Caribbean generates its own clean energy without relying on these harmful imported energy sources, we could stand a better chance at counteracting the effects of climate change. Fossil fuels are very expensive and are very harmful to our environment. If we can generate our own renewable energy systems, it will have lower operating costs compared to fossil fuel-based systems. Because, according to Constellation.com, a 6 kilowatt system would cost around $18, which, when compared to the pollution that fossil fuel-based systems cause to the environment, such as global warming, pollution, and climate change from the burning of the oil, coal, and gas that we use every day. My worthy opponents, with all this being said, imported energy sources are very expensive while also being extremely harmful to the environment, making imported fossil energy sources not beneficial to us as people, as a nation, and Caribbean region. We would also have more money to put into renewable energy projects, which are much more beneficial for us. According to the Nation Energy Policy 2023, I thank you.
and good morning to the Honorable Chair, distinguished judges, respected opponents, and members of the audience. I stand before you today to debate the resolution before us, be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. As first speaker, I will define key terms in this debate and speak on the high initial costs. Our second speaker will speak on the lack of technicians and how main energy sources are imported, making it impossible to generate energy without imports. And our rebuttal speaker will solidify our stance and address any invalid claims made by our opponents. In context of this debate, generate means to produce or create energy. Import means to bring energy from another country. Energy source refers to different ways in which countries obtain energy from, all according to Oxford Dictionary. My teammates and I fully oppose the resolution simply because the resolution is requiring us to consider generating our energy without relying on importing energy sources. Let's look at fossil fuels, for example. According to the IEA, International Energy Agency, global investment in oil and gas supply is estimated to be around $1 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an extremely high cost. Imagine in 5 years, the Caribbean is spending all this money on fossil fuels. We would have spent over $5 trillion. Ladies and gentlemen, don't you think that this is economically draining? Now let us talk about renewable energy. According to Ms. Alicia Andrews, Consumer and Public Affairs Officer at PERC, the average cost of a solar system is $14,000 average. This shows that installing a solar system is very costly. Audience, imagine we as a region, for example, we as a nation, for example, let's say another hurricane comes like Hurricane Beryl and we put all our money into solar panels. Don't you think that this would be a waste of money? The evidence shows that generating our own energy sources will be too costly and can be draining for the economies. And this is why my team and I strongly oppose the mute. I thank you.
With protocol already established, good morning. Honorable judges, I strongly agree with the moot, be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. According to CaribbeanEnergyPolicy.com, the Caribbean can generate its own energy with renewables such as solar, wind, hydro, and geothermal energy. Generating our own energy cuts the need for costly fossil fuels imports, which accounts for a large portion of Grenada's foreign exchange spending. Local renewable resources like wind and solar can provide consistent energy costs, reducing volatility associated with global energy markets. This stability is crucial for long-term economic planning and growth. In addition, generating our own energy will create jobs not only in Grenada, but in the entire Caribbean region. Grenada's solar energy initiatives have already led to a significant employment opportunities, which in turn foster greater economic resilience. According to healthagency.org, when we generate our own energy, it is a much safer option for us and our environment. If we stop spending our income on fossil fuels, we will reduce environmental challenges like water and air pollution. My worthy opponents, take a look at our neighboring island, Trinidad. There are oil spills in the water, which can cause animals in the sea to die. Example, like our fishes. What do you think will happen to our supply in fish? What will happen to our fishermen? Won't they lose their jobs? Tell me, how will they be able to feed their families? I thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As the second speaker for the opposition, I will further justify and solidify our opposing stance on the resolution. Be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. My points will show how the Caribbean doesn't have proper technicians on their islands and that most of our main energy sources are imported, making it impossible to generate without imports. Ladies and gentlemen, our Caribbean countries, especially smaller ones, do not have the capabilities to generate their energy without relying on imported sources. Our countries rely on more developed and larger countries to do the heavy lifting for us. Our opponents may argue that we can use technicians already located in our region to develop these energy sources, but where are they? If we had these people to develop these sources, they would have already been utilizing them. Many Caribbean countries, even our own, rely on foreign investments and imports for energy sources. Our opponents may argue that the larger Caribbean countries may be able to invest in R&D and technical development, but what about the majority? The majority being the smaller islands. Opponents, a lot of island territories in the Caribbean do not have oil. An example being our own island. If we do not have energy sources like oil, how can we generate energy on our own without relying on imports? Furthermore, we do not have the technical capabilities or the research and development capabilities to use or utilize renewable energy sources or technologies without relying on imports. Ladies and gentlemen, think practically. If we could have done this by ourselves without relying on imports, we in the Caribbean region would have already done so. For example, does Grenlec or the Grenadian government have oil? No, they are imported. These same imported sources of oil are used to power our imported power generators, which we use to power our grids. This is why we in the Caribbean cannot generate our own energy without relying on imported sources, because we don't have the technical knowledge, technicians on our islands, or any non-imported technologies or sources on our islands to generate them ourselves. I thank you. Worthy opponents, your second speaker spoke about jobs. How does this prove that we can generate energy without inputs?
My worthy opponent, please repeat the question.
Your second speaker spoke about jobs. How does this prove that we can generate without inputs?
Well, my worthy opponent, if we generate our own energy, we would be able to have job openings in the Caribbean for these persons in the renewable energy sector.
But how does this prove that we can generate without inputs?
My worthy opponent, we have the facilities ready and available to generate without imports. For example, solar energy.
Do we have the financial facilities?
Yes, we do, my worthy opponent.
So why are we at 7% in our goals?
Because, my worthy opponent, everything takes time. And therefore, if we are to fully transition to renewable energy, it will take time.
Okay. Where will smaller countries in the Caribbean get the monies to source the energy sources?
My worthy opponent, we have the private sectors which are readily available and always willing to source income.
But what if these smaller countries' private sectors cannot source the money to get the energy sources?
My worthy opponent, that's where we have subsidizing.
How many countries have energy sources like oil that they can use to generate energy?
Well, my worthy opponent, we have Guyana, we have Trinidad and Tobago, and we have a lot of others, but the main Guyana and Trinidad and Tobago.
But doesn't this go back to my second point that about the smaller countries? How do these smaller countries get the energy sources without importing?
My worthy opponent, we can use the energy that we have available, which is solar power. Therefore, we do not need to import because we have the materials in the Caribbean to be able to produce energy.
Okay, but what if these smaller countries do not have the financial capabilities to utilize solar power?
My worthy opponent, that is a redundant question, sorry. But we
now,
have the private sectors, and if the private sectors do not have enough money, we have the government. My worthy opponent, do you propose that we remain energy dependent on imported sources?
well, my worthy opponent, if this is the more feasible idea, yes.
So are we truly an independent nation?
My worthy opponent, not because we are importing goods, that doesn't mean we are an independent nation.
But
we
my
are
worthy opponent,
we are an independent nation.
But my worthy opponent, doesn't that mean that we are still dependent on imported fossil fuels?
Well, yes, because we are small island developing states. If we do not have the funds, how are we going to do it for ourselves?
My worthy opponent, I digress. We have the funds, but I digress.
We have.
How do you address the long-term volatility of energy prices concerning imported fossil fuels?
My worthy opponent, yes, fossil fuels may be expensive, but same too as renewable energy technologies. They are very expensive.
Renewable energy has benefits.
So yes, fossil fuel may be expensive, but also is renewable energy, and that is what we will have to use, right?
Correct. My worthy opponents, you said that renewable energy is costly, but isn't it also costly to buy and import fossil fuels?
Yes, but not as much as by importing. Wait.
My worthy opponent, it is more costly to import fossil fuels. Moving on, what strategies do you propose for achieving energy independence in the Caribbean?
Well, we can use our renewable sources when we get the finances. Because we do not have the, yes, we can use our renewable sources, right? But we do not have the finances to use them as now, right?
My worthy opponent, you said that we do not have the finances. Isn't the main reason why we don't have the finances because we are spending our money on importing fossil fuels?
No, my worthy opponent, what statistics you have to prove that?
My worthy opponent, according to the National Energy Policies 2023 to 2035, we are using so many fossil fuels that it is hindering our income on report. But
Ladies and gentlemen, as Roberta's speaker, I am here simply to assist my team in the demolition of all of the invalid claims made here today by our opponents, and to show you why our claims are the most profound. My team and I stand in full disagreement with the resolution. Be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. My opponent's first speaker stated that the Caribbean can rely on other sources like wind and solar. However, my team and I cannot support this claim. Why? Simply because fossil fuels are still the main source of energy in the Caribbean, and it has to be imported for most islands. As my first speaker has already stated, this can be extremely expensive to even attempt to produce on our own. My opponents also made mention of the oil spills in Trinidad that affects the environment. But what about the effects of producing our own renewable energy that my opponent seems to speak so greatly about? The same renewable energy that we lack technical help and would need to use imports. The same renewable energy that is also harmful to our environment. And this is why, ladies and gentlemen, my team and I cannot stand with this resolution. I thank you.
With protocol already established, good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, the proposition are not impressed with the fallacies brought forth by the opposition. As the final speaker of my team, I am here to shed light on these fallacies and expel the dark misconceptions that the opposition has placed in your minds. My team and I heavily support the moot. Be it resolved that the Caribbean can generate its own energy without relying on imported energy sources. My first speaker stated, when we are energy independent, it will cut costly fossil fuel imports. Moreover, your first speaker agreed with us when she stated that fossil fuels are economically draining. Thank you. Your first speaker stated that we don't have the technicians in the Caribbean, but according to the national energy policies of 2023 to 2035, we have 8 energy specialists plus the others who are studying. Are we just going to discard them? My worthy opponent, you only had one point, which was that we do not have the money. However, according to our sources, the private sector has the money and the government is able to subsidize renewable energy projects. Your rebuttal speaker stated the oil spills in Trinidad and that renewable energy is also harmful to the environment. My opponent, what sources do you have that renewable energy is also harmful to the environment? I thank you.
And the winner is MacDonald College. Well done, team. We say hats off to all participants. We thank you, our viewing audience, for joining us, and we invite you to tune in again for a complete coverage of the next match in the Round of 16 series.
The Grenlec Debates. Power, bright ideas.
The Grenlec Debates will be broadcast on MTV Monday and Thursday at 9 p.m. and on Saturday at 6 p.m. and on GBN TV Tuesday and Thursday at 6 p.m. and on Sunday at 4 p.m.
Tune in